by Steve Austin.
Chapter 10. Broken Doors and Aliases. Hiranum, the Gnomish runner whom Dakeenum and Jerome had sent to inquire about moving Matheela to a safer location, was in a pleasant mood, even though the message he was to convey to Parthis at the Wayward Maid was on the bleak side. Still, he was going to spend the day and night in what was perhaps the sweetest splurt house in Eros. The noonday sun was shining down upon his bald, gnomish head, and he sang softly to himself under his breath as he jogged up the road toward the maid. As the Wayward Maid came into sight, Hiranum was jarred from his revelry, which was laden with lovely red-headed Noid maidens, and was stopped dead in his tracks as he gaped at the front porch. The front door was laying in the yard 50 feet from the steps in several pieces. There were burn marks on the door facings, and all the seating and tables on the porch were either overturned or also laying in the yard. Hiranum took off at a sprint for the stand of trees to the eastern border of the yard and hid himself there. He took several minutes to assess the situation. Seeing no movement and hearing no voices, he drew his short, one-half-length broadsword and approached the porch in as stealthy a manner as he could. Which, if you recall, a gnome is by nature capable of great stealth, so I doubt anyone would even be aware of his presence. He approached the porch from the east and climbed over the railing. Falling to all fours, he crawled past the large bay windows of the drawing room so as to not be seen by anyone inside. After passing the windows, he rose to his feet and stood with his back to the wall just to the right of the scorched door frame. He cocked his ear toward the door and listened for nearly a minute and heard no sound. He again fell to all fours and crawled slowly through the doorway into the foyer and peered around 180 degrees. To his right was the drawing room where he saw 3 bodies, a female Noid sprawled on the couch, and a male Noid alongside a female elf lying face down on the floor. All 3 had green feathered ducal darts protruding from their necks. Good, he thought. Green, so they most likely will recover. He looked to his left where the front desk was located. He crawled to the end slowly and cautiously peered around the desk to see Parthis there, lying on his back with a green dart in his chest.
Parthis, are you conscious? Can you speak?
Yes, and movement is beginning to return to my extremities. I can wiggle my fingers and toes now. I suppose I'll soon be able to stand.
Just take it easy for now. Witches have obviously attacked you. Are they still here, or do you know?
They've been gone 30 minutes now. They blew the door off its hinges, burst in and darted everyone. Best I could tell, there were 8 of them. From what I could hear, it seems they searched every room, downstairs and up. Apparently didn't find whom or what they were seeking, then left out the back door.
They must have headed north then, or I would have encountered them on the road.
He pulled the dart from Parthis's chest and told him to rest while he checked on everyone else. The 3 in the drawing room were also beginning to come to, as they, along with Parthis, were likely the first to be darted. The dining hall was next. There were probably about 30 people of varying species therein, as it was noon after all. Their luncheon sat on the table getting cold as they had fallen from their chairs and benches onto the stone floor of the hall. Clientele, serving wenches, working girls, and chefs were all lying here and there, all darted, and all with green feathers. Most were also beginning to come to. He jumped up on a table and said,
"Everyone remain calm. Your attackers are gone. Just rest where you are and let the effects of the darts wear off."
He jumped down and proceeded down the long hallway where the inn-type rooms, that is, rooms rented to clientele for sleeping, were. Only 3 were occupied, and all 3 guests were still unconscious, but all green darted, so they would no doubt awaken soon. He climbed the stairs and stood at the end of the hallway leading to the rooms which housed the maidens who worked there. Only 4 rooms were occupied, as most of the ladies were in the dining hall having their midday meal. 3 of the 4 were still out cold, as the ladies on the second floor were likely the last to be darted. The 4th sat in the floor at the foot of her bed, hugging her knees, sobbing profusely. It was Shanaeah, the little gnomish maiden Jerome was so fond of. Hiranum knelt beside her, and placing one hand on her shoulder, he placed the fingers of his other hand under her chin and gently raised her pretty gnome maiden face.
"Are you all right, precious?"
She opened her eyes and looked at him, tears still streaming.
"I suppose. Just frightened and... oh, I don't know."
With that, she wrapped her arms around him, and he pulled her close and held her.
"It's okay. Just take your time. You aren't injured, are you?"
"No, not physically, just terrified. They...
And she burst into tears again. Hiranem held her, comforting her as best he could. He noticed no dart either protruding from Tanea's body or in the floor, so he assumed she had not been darted, but questioned and perhaps tortured. She still clung tightly to him, and he was reluctant to break the embrace, even though he needed to finish investigating the rest of the rooms. He had held her for about 10 minutes when he heard Parthas's voice.
Hi, Rainham. Are you up here?
Yes. Third room from the last on the left.
Parthas came through the door and saw them sitting at the foot of the bed. Taneah still gently sobbing, her head upon Hiranem's chest. He knelt in front of her.
Taneah, honey. Are you all right, little lady?
Taneah broke the embrace with Hiranem and jumped up from the floor and wrapped herself around Parthas's kneeling form.
Oh, blessings, it was horrible, Pappy. They were so cruel.
Many of the maidens at the Maid referred to Parthas as Pappy, a term of endearment.
There, dear. Calm down and tell your old boss man what happened.
Well, I heard them coming down the hall, snatching open every door along the way. I heard the screams of the other maidens as they... Oh no, they didn't kill the other girls, did they?
No, dear, no one was killed. They just darted us all to immobilize us. Go on, sweetheart.
So they burst through my door. 3 of them came inside, the other 5 continued down the hallway to the other rooms. I was sitting at my dresser combing my hair, and I turned around, and before I could say anything, one of them stretched her hands toward me and said some Marfowitch incantation, I guess. Without touching me, she lifted me from my chair and pinned me against the wall. As she held me there, the other 2 started reciting incantations as well. What happened next? I'm not sure whether it actually occurred, or if it was just some mind spell they cast upon me. I suspect the latter, but it seemed so real. Anyhow, they took me behind the maid where a grave had been dug. They placed me in a wooden box and...
She broke into heavy sobs again.
It's gonna be okay, Tauntaun. Take your time and catch your breath.
Taneah finally was able to gather herself, and she continued.
They placed me in the box and buried me alive. I could hear the spades full of dirt as they struck the top of the coffin. I beat on the lid and begged to be set free. Then I heard a low-pitched witch voice say, "The more you struggle, the quicker your air is used up. Calm down and listen, little bitch." At that point, the voice began to question me about Matheela. It told me if I lied, I would be left in the coffin to die. I'm so sorry, Parthas, but I was mortally terrified at that point, and I just wanted out. I told everything I knew, which fortunately wasn't very much. The voice then said, "Sleep tight, little whore." I was screaming uncontrollably, begging to be let out, and beating the lid of the coffin with my fists until I finally passed out. I woke here at the foot of the bed, and they were gone.
She again broke into uncontrollable sobs, and Parthas held her tight, gently stroking her long black hair.
That's it, Tauntaun. Cry it out, baby girl. It's over now, and we're gonna get you out of here. You're gonna visit the elvish spirit ministers and get your sweet little heart healed. Hiranem, I'll stay here with Tauntaun if you'd be so good as to check the remaining rooms. The witches may have taken something or left some other clue as to their intentions.
Sure thing. I'll yell if I find anything.
Then Hiranem rose and went out the door, headed toward the end of the hall. There were 4 more rooms to check. The first 3 yielded nothing out of the ordinary. Then he entered the last room on the left. He returned to Tanea's room and told Parthas,
I'll stay with Taneah. You need to take a look in the last room on the left side of the hall.
Will you be okay, Tauntaun?
Yes, I just don't want to be alone right now, as long as Hiranem promises not to leave me.
I wouldn't dream of it, my sweet.
Parthas rose and walked down the hall. The room in question was Matheela's bedroom. As he opened the door, the room looked quite undisturbed, save one item. Above the headboard of her bed, affixed to the wall with a single red-feathered ducal dart, was a piece of parchment. The parchment had but one word written upon it: Mortebrae. Meanwhile, back on the raft which was moving swiftly down the river, taking Matheela, Dinari, and the party of merchants toward the half-breed city, Dinari was voicing a concern to Matheela.
I think once we reach Boniscus, we should refrain from using our actual names. I had assumed we were a step or 2 ahead of Minerva, but since the attack at Pish, I'm not certain anymore. Plus, I had considered this perhaps necessary even before that happened. We actually should have assumed new names before we boarded the raft. but we were in such a hurry.
And Matheela answered,
Yes, I agree. But it may be a futile gesture. If Jerome is there, then our cover is blown pretty much upon our arrival.
Unless, that is, if he perceives of our need to be incognito and plays along.
It's possible. Jerome is quite perceptive and no doubt suspects Minerva may be looking to execute Mortebrae upon me. Jerome is an honorable Minister and won't feed us to the wolves regardless of what transpires. He will understand our reasoning and hopefully vouch for us before the Lord of the City, even should our deception be unmasked. I suppose it is a chance we shall have to take. So, who do you want to be?
I've always thought Carnata to be a pretty name. Think it suits me?
Yes, I like it. Would you like to name me as well?
For you, I see you as, perhaps, Kirena? Maybe not as pretty as Matheela, but what is?
Matheela giggled and said,
Now, we don't have time to flirt. But yes, I like that too. We have to let Rafus, Condon, and Nimbash know of this. Cephas, well, when he comes to, we can claim the blow to his head altered his memory.
Matheela and Dinari gathered everyone to the rear of the raft where Nimbash was working the rudder and explained why their real names were not to be used in Boniscus. The story they told the merchants was that there was a person of rank within the half-breed city who had a serious beef with Parthas. Naturally, they wanted to avoid any conflict while they were there so that Cephas would receive the care he needed and the entire party could rest and be refreshed. This also took into account why the ladies were just now informing the merchants of this. Since they had not planned to stop in Boniscus, the false names did not become necessary until now.
Well, Kirena, I think we can make this work provided Jerome isn't there, or plays along if he is.
Yes, Carnata, if.
Shanaeah, Dakeenum, and Zarkin sat on the dock on the northern border of Boniscus, watching the dragonflies hover above the water of the great river, and engaged in light conversation. The afternoon sun was brightly reflecting off the surface of the clear water as the three friends sat sipping melanin and enjoying each other's company. It was exactly what Shanaeah needed to keep her mind off things until her date with fate at midnight. Dakeenum was describing an illicit incident involving a working lady he had once enjoyed, with Zarkin nodding his agreement as the story became more and more graphic. Shanaeah finally interrupted.
Slap me naked and burn my bloomers. Dakeenum, son of Darvis, you are indeed the horniest little bastard walking Aronian soil. And you aren't much better, Zarkin. Don't you boys ever think about anything besides Tunch?
Dakeenum chuckled a bit and answered.
Okay. Forget about Tunch. We'll talk about something else. Hey, I know. Show us your titties, Naya.
Zarkin spit a mouthful of melanin across the dock and Shanaeah stifled a laugh.
You are so damned infantile. What will it take to get you little boys' minds out of the gutter?
Oh, I don't know. Let me see. Maybe, just maybe. Maybe there's something we could be doing right now that would negate the need for simply thinking about Tunch. Something that involves all three of us. Something that involves that which resides in your bloomers. Something...
All right, little pervo gnomes. Damn, but you are so very romantic, Da. Some of the ogres of Rorsch were more sensitive than you, lover boy. But, all right. If it will shut you two up, I suppose we could have a go.
And a go they did indeed have. Once everyone had been satisfied, they all lay there in the cool grass in the shade of the huge oak tree next to the dock for quite a few minutes, just relishing in the aftermath of their lovemaking before Shanaeah eventually broke the silence.
Everything is about to change, isn't it, Da?
What do you mean, Naya?
This could be our last afternoon to lie in the sun after a sweet little love session and just enjoy the world. Relish in the little flecks of sun beaming down through the leaves of this old oak. Enjoy the smell of the grass and the sound of the river. Just be... us. I just want to start running down the Great River Road and keep running until all this is far behind me. I didn't ask for this, guys. I didn't ask to be this being from the old prophecies. I just wanted to be Shanaeah, Odicum and Renata's daughter, your best friend.
But you are all those things. None of that will ever change. Yeah, we gotta take the time to teach this witch woman her proper place. But once that's done...
Yes, milady. We shall beat this Marfo bitch so severely, she will never dare attempt to defy us again. And as Dakeenum said, You shall always be our beloved Shanaeah.
So sweet. I love you little shits so very much. But, well, I guess my fears are at a peak at the moment. Come on, my little gnomish loves. Let's go sit on the dock and dangle our feet in the cool river water for a bit.
With that, they rose and walked out on the dock. Shanaeah's attention was suddenly drawn to an object upstream. She squinted her huge sapphire eyes against the sunlight reflecting from the surface of the river and said,
Zarkin, Dar, is that a raft I see approaching?